you don't sleep, right? That's the way you do all this, right? You're a sleepless machine. Well, I'm Tom O'Neill. I've been your moderator, and I have a presentation I want to provide you. And actually, it's really nice that everybody has kind of done my work for me and set up my presentation slides to be so aligned with what you're doing without us ever talking to each other. One of the things I believe in is certainly entrepreneurship and innovation. And this is a slide I show people because, you know, we all say the innovation-based economy can make everybody wealthy, but this is world GDP per capita for the last 3,000 years. So it clearly shows that since minus 1,000 till around the 1900s, the GDP per capita was pretty much stagnant. And now if you look what's happened, this is blown up over the next 400 or just over 400 year, you can see what's happening. And it really, the Industrial Revolution really didn't have a big input on wealth per capita, but the innovation economy sure seems to be doing that. And I think the secret of that is there's smart people everywhere, right? I mean, ideas can come from anybody, any place. And right now with the new technology, you can do it from anywhere almost. So, and if you look at it, we still have a long way to go. That GDP per capita in US dollars is only about $6,500, but it wasn't even $1,000 for a long time. And the blue and the red lines is one's the high estimate and one's the low estimate, if you're wondering what the two lines are. And I like to show this to get things started. When you think about a regional economy, one of the things that I talk about the money and the way money flows, and this comes out of a business college, I think mostly, but we call bad money is money when you have in a community, you have to send outside to buy things, or when people you train and educate leave and go someplace else and go to another region and make that region more wealthy. Neutral money is the money that kind of circulates in the community. Again, the barber goes and buys lunch at the local diner, who goes and gets his hair cut someplace, and that money just circulates around. And the really good money is when you have people that are doing business internationally, or at least outside their town. They're bringing in money, and it helps everybody, not just the company that's bringing in money from outside their region by selling goods and services outside of region, but also it helps the neutral business, and it helps reduce the bad money going in because it replenishes some of the money that's been going outside of a region. So if you think about that in your economic development scheme, I think it helps people understand how to make things better. This is something I did as a university, with my university hat on, trying to explain to university administrators why we would do economic development and why we would want to patent patents and things like that. But you really got to start with a world-class research and facility that, you know, we talked about Oxford and Cambridge and places like that. And we have the good universities in California. There's good universities everywhere, but there's also places that have smart people that aren't in university. I keep telling that. So you fund these things, people come up with good stuff. They create great technology, and they create people with smart minds and are well-educated. Companies are formed. You help those companies grow and become successful with their product lines. You put them in a research part, you create jobs. And that usually gives back to the community, and that actually will take a long way back. That will fund your world-class research and facilities. So it's in your enlightened self-interest to do these things. This is the kind of three-dimensional pictorial image of that same thing. So you need top researchers and faculty, you need entrepreneurs who take this stuff, you need money. It helps if you have a cluster. If you notice that the Cambridge example, they had industry clusters that seem to do better. People want to be around each other that are likewise. We had our IP person here. You need to understand how to do IP and the importance of IP and managing IP. And you need to really keep your top students engaged and keep them in your community. And then you do research, you generate the IP, you have a strategy to develop this stuff, do market research, commercialize it. And then the top of the iceberg is really the economic development. But you know, I tell people, you can't start at the top. You got to build this infrastructure where you have these clusters and innovation districts that can really build true economic development for a community. And this is what my attempt to kind of talk about it in terms of ecosystem. I got my PhD in innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems. And one of the things I learned probably when I did this about 10 years ago, if you know, everyone makes a bubble graph, right? And usually they put themselves in the center of a bubble graph, right? And I realized if you're going to do innovation, you need to put the entrepreneur and the innovators in the center of this bubble, and you help them become prosperous with all these things you surround them with, and the whole community will succeed, you know. And you need intellectual capital, I think, to generate some new ideas in an innovation-based economy. Again, it comes from universities, colleges, nonprofits, research institutions, and other smart people in the community. But you also have the talent pool, not just the techies, but the the C-level managers and execs that can go in and make these things become real. You need money, you need capital, financial capital for sure. Angels, VC, philanthropy, we saw that today. Banks, government, corporate partners, how do you do it? And I find you really need someone who gets it, your advocates and champions that say, why would you do this? Because you need to, right? What makes this thing work? Do you want to have a broad-based prosperity, or you want to just kind of keep going like you're doing? Usually someone's got to promote these things. They do take a long time to seed and really become successful. That's why I talk about this other stuff too, the resources you can do, the incubators, the SBDC, we call them small business development centers, other service providers that are kind of enlightened. Economic guarding is a term I use for supporting second stage companies. So it's good to do this stuff. And these little dashed lines, my attempt, the better these people talk to each other and hand off, between the different sources, the better you'll be. And if the entrepreneur's in the middle and you always think about how you're going to make them be more successful, the whole system works better. Start with why. I think this is a good quote. If you ever know Simon Sinek, he does the start with why. And there's, again, no power of change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. If you care about economic development, you care about it becoming an innovation-based economy, if you care about making a broad-based prosperity, then it makes it easier to figure out what you want to do if you get on the same page. And places like Austin and other people have figured that a long time ago. They call it unity of purpose and consistency of action, I think is a word. So they all get together and decide what they want to be, like what they care about, and they put together a plan to make it happen. And this is Simon Sinek, so I'd recommend doing it. If you haven't seen the TED Talk, he's really always inspirational to me. If you know why you're doing something, then you can always figure out how and the what. But if you only know the what and the how, you're probably not going to be very successful. And this is something I throw in, and I'm talking about building entrepreneurial communities, not self-employed people. This is a graph of self-employed per capita in OECD countries, and you'll see it goes down by the percentage of self-employed people. The more you have, the less income per capita you have. And the reverse is true. You suspect, or I wouldn't show you this slide, right? Entrepreneurship and developing growth companies, the more the percentage you have that in your community, the higher per income will be, the higher per capita income it'll be. And this is all the developed countries, and it's also probably true at somewhat to the developing and emerging companies as well, or countries. And in Florida, I always throw this up. Well, why focus on startups and not just help the great big companies? Because this percentage here is self-employed. They're like in 30% of the companies, but only about 8% of the jobs. Stage one is 63% of the companies and about 44% of the jobs. And stage two, which I'll define as 10 to 99, is 5% of the companies, but 30% of your jobs. So this is where you really create your net jobs. And if you're looking at a place like Florida or the US in general, they're pretty similar. Companies of 100 employees or less represent about 99% of all the companies and about 82% of the jobs. And I think innovation in small companies are everywhere. This is the heat map of the United States only, but this is where new jobs and new startups are coming. And you see the usual suspect, the Boston's, New York, the Silicon Valley, but you also see places you hadn't thought about in the Midlands, like in Denver. And here, Naples, Florida, who would have figured, right? This is Chicago. You can see this, the red is higher density of activity, but these are where all the startups and growing small companies are located in the US. And so think about an ecosystem that has support for all these stage companies. Think about how to make them more successful when they're starting, get them when they're really young at stage one, and help them all the way through to become a fairly significant large company and they're doing things on their own. And also develop your clusters, right? Think about the horizontal and the vertical stuff. Have a big broad base to help early stage companies, the small ones, have some also support for the second stage, and then get them, some support all the way up to the very, very big companies. And what is your industry sectors? And Orlando, for example, is financial, tourism, real estate, and constructions are our big industry clusters with an emerging tech scene in optics, lasers, and modeling and simulation. And again, can you help? And this is a study I did about, I think, I don't remember whenever it was, but these are companies that started at the same time outside an incubator. And these are the companies that started at the same time in the same region, in the same industry sector that were in an incubator. So as you can see, the revenue increased, and so did the jobs. Bigger number, grew faster too. And what do we try to do when we help these companies? The number one reason startups fail is because they're building something that nobody wants. And I was really happy to see discover the problem first, and then you can discover how the solution is, right? Number two reason is hiring poorly. So again, these are things that people make mistakes with all the time. You can see the majority are these top three subjects. So as you're trying to help these companies become more successful, you can help them with these things. You know, what they do badly. Don't let them make the same mistakes over and over again and be a drain on your resources in the community. And what you're trying to do, and this is, forgive me, this is a baseball analogy, and I forget, maybe some people don't know what baseball is, but these are strikeouts, these are base hits, and these are home runs. These are your gazelles, or your unicorns down here at the bottom. So what you're trying to do with these resources is shift the curve down. You're not going to eliminate strikeouts ever, but you know, if you can make them fewer and get the base hits to be higher and the home runs to be higher, that's what you do when you put together these innovation ecosystems to help become more successful. That's the goal. Reduce your risk. And actually reduce customer risk. Most techies, again, I'm an engineer by training, so I understand why we do this, but we think about risk in terms of the technology not going forward, as opposed to no one wanting to buy it. So what you want to do in a lot of these ecosystems is really reduce the risk of your customer, right? Go out and talk to them and find out what they really need. Find out what the problem is before you provide a solution for it. And this is I like to kind of close on this. I think I got a little bit of time, but this is what it looks like. And forgive me because I'm a sailor and it helps me to do the analogy, but this is what you start off in the beginning when everybody has a great idea. It's just like the wild river, you know, rat races you have and stuff, and people all over the place. But eventually, you know, one of these or two of these folks will actually start getting their act together, and you can help them with SBDCs and entrepreneurship centers and things like that to figure out how they do this stuff. Before you know it, they're in the game, right? They're racing. They're here lined up with all the competition. The competition is heavy, and they still have a huge chance of being kind of a failure or failing because they didn't do things right. But, you know, out of here will emerge some winners, and they'll get better, and they'll start having different things. You have to help them grow. You'll notice here, it's like one or two people in these boats. Now you're up to 5, 6 people. You have different roles for people got to provide. You know, they have to grow themselves, you know, become more of a CEO, learn to hire better, learn how to do accounting, and learn to do all the things they didn't have to do before when they were all doing it together. And the goal is to get them to here, and you can still help them. I mean, at this point, the owner may not even be on the boat. Over here, the owner is there, right? Over here, the founder may be not even on the boat. He may be putting this thing together, and they're raising money, and you're doing different jobs. So how do you get them to go better? How do you know how to get them to where their customers are? How do you help them become successful at this stage? So I use this because they're all different. They all need different things at different times. So if you can right size your entrepreneurial ecosystem so you serve all these people, they won't have to leave your community to get the help they need. So have it all either local or have it so where they can get access to it. And this is another, forgive the water analogy, but this is what happens when you take a piece of barren land and drop some old oil rigs on it, and you can create this really thriving community now because there's structure there. There's way for people to build things. You'll see fish and dive sites, and this really was a piece of land that was providing no help to anybody until they decided to do something about it. They put the infrastructure in and had a strategic plan to make it happen. And this is my last slide. I can say I am a nerd. This is what I like to close on. This is Klingon for danger laser radiation. So in case you're wondering what that meant. All right. And with that, I'll stop my sharing. And we have a total of like 2.5 minutes left for questions for anyone in this panel if you want to talk about things. There is a chat mode, again, question and answer down here, which I don't see any right now, but I'm going to try to get us to, well, it's lunchtime here. I'm not sure what time it is for everybody else, but with that, I'll turn it back over to our host, Dr. Hannity. Of course, I have this coming on now. It's kind of interesting. Any questions from anybody? Okay.
Can I just ask a question, Thomas?
Yes.